This podcast is part of the Some Buddies Network. You're never alone when you've got some buddies.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. It's in your face and to the extreme. Best Darn Diddly is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. I am Mr. Poochie D, and of course, joining me, as always, your co-host with the most extreme,
Wizzy K!
Wizzy K. Welcome to the show, Rich. How you doing today? To the extreme!
I am feeling like a villain, sir, but probably one of those villains that people hate and don't want to see on TV ever again, not because they're an actually good villain. But we'll get into that. I am so excited to talk about the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show. So all I can do is throw it back to you, Poochie D himself, the man, the myth, Impy and Chimpy. It is Miles.
Richie, I have no idea where that was, but I know it was not in my face.
Oh, okay then.
So if you have not guessed by now, we are talking about the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, which originally aired on February 7th, 1997. And right off the bat, I already have some extreme trivia for you, because this episode of The Simpsons was actually the 167th episode, which marks it surpassing the former record holder for longest running American animated show ever, which was the Flintstones. Now, it's not the longest running show ever, which was a Japanese show by the name of Doraemon, which actually started running in 1979 and is still going to this day. But
wow,
the 167th episode, it surpasses the Flintstones, a true milestone, as the Simpsons have even paid homage to the Flintstones and the influence that it had on American TV culture in general, and of course on the Simpsons itself.
I remember when the news came out where they were talking about how it had passed the Flintstones, and I don't remember it being that long ago. But right? I remember reading about it, so that I guess that tells you something if I had to read about it, since we live in an internet age now. So yeah, I remember it being a big deal back then, but that's because I was a huge Simpsons fan by this time.
It's like 22 and a half years ago, for what it's worth.
It's not worth much.
This one is a Josh Weinstein and Bill Oakley episode, so as you may expect, it does not have a chalk gag. There's way too much episode for this one. It does have a really dope couch gag. It is one we've seen before, but it is a homage to the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, with Homer playing the role, or the Paul McCartney's role on the cover, I would say, but he's facing backwards, not looking where he's supposed to be.
He's looking at everybody.
I'll go ahead and mention right away that the commentary for this episode featured Josh Weinstein, David Cohen, the writer, Yardley Smith, the voice of Lisa Simpson, Steve Moore, the director, Matt Groening, who of course created the show, and Alex Rocco, who is the voice actor that plays Roger Myers Jr. And he actually gave a lot of credit to the Simpsons staff in this episode, because this was actually, The Simpsons specifically, was his first a move into voiceover acting, taking on the character of Roger Myers Jr. Now,
wow.
Alex Rocco had been a very prolific actor up until this point. In fact, his best known role, he's probably best known as the villain in The Godfather, Mo Green. But he is also an Emmy Award winner for his supporting role in the comedy The Famous Teddy Z. And he did a lot of live action acting before he got into voice acting late in his career. And he said that he was, for whatever reason, just absolutely terrified. Like, he got nervous like he hadn't been in 40 years when he came in to take on this role. But immediately, the Simpsons voice actors just took him under his wing and made him feel really comfortable, made him feel at home. And it was just a real fun time, and actually a launching pad for him, because he went on to do a lot of voiceover work later in his career with that signature gravelly voice of his.
Well, it can be a little nerve-wracking when you get in a little like sound booth and have these headphones on and like it's all on you to do the voice in that one moment and there's people.
Are you having a personal crisis right now?
Well, if you recall, Miles, I actually, when I was in high school, I auditioned to do an American voice for Dragon Ball Z before I knew anything about Dragon Ball Z. So like it was honestly like it was just, you know, a 1.5 minute little audition, but it was so much fun. Like after the first take, when you're so incredibly nervous, I don't even remember what the move. I got to do one of those moments where like you scream their move into the microphone as loud as you can. It was a lot of fun, man.
That does sound really
nerve-wracking and fun.
Yeah, sure. It's intimidating for certain, especially if it's
Exactly.
not what you're used to. You're outside of your comfort zone by being inside a tiny little recording studio.
Yeah.
This episode does actually open with the Krusty the Clown show, and he is asking if everybody enjoyed the one-man pie fight, which I would have actually really liked to see.
Absolutely. I'm thinking Fight Club, but with pies.
That's exactly right. It's Tyler Durden. So we actually cut to an Itchy and Scratchy episode, Why Do Fools Fall in Lava? We see that Scratchy is visiting a volcano where he can actually bungee jump, but unfortunately, the person running this operation is none other than Itchy, who actually cuts out Scratchy's intestines, ties them to the top of the volcano, and then throws him over the edge where he lands doesn't land, but hangs just mere feet from the boiling lava below. But he kind of takes a moment to wipe his forehead as this close call of his death, which I'm thinking intestines hanging out is probably already pretty bad.
Or being that close to lava probably already is pretty
already bad enough. But then, just to throw some literal gas on this fire, Itchy starts pouring gasoline down his intestines, which is fucking, wow, over the top and amazing that they're able to get away with this, but also a lot of fun.
That made me remember the Simpsons trading cards because I have a ton of them in some box somewhere, and I'm pretty sure there's Itchy and Scratchy segments in there because I think I remember having multiples of the Why Do Fools Fall in Lava set.
Oh, that's fun.
Absolutely.
The weird part about this episode isn't the over-the-top violence, as you might expect from the classic cartoon Itchy and Scratchy. No. It's the fact that when we pan out on the Simpsons living room, nobody's watching the TV, and we actually see Marge talking to Bart and Lisa at the kitchen table, and she's even alarmed, telling them that they're missing the Itchy and Scratchy show. Don't you like it anymore?
Sure, we love it. But how can we watch TV when it's so beautiful out?
Well, yeah, Mom. I mean, we love you and Dad, too, but God knows we don't need to see you every day.
An occasional hug is all I ask.
Oh, Mom, you can hug me when I'm asleep.
I do.
Ah! To be fair, that is actually legit creepy.
Oh, but you've never been a mother, Miles. How would you know?
You don't know my life. I could have been a mother. Don't tell me what I can and can't be.
Okay, Bart with the lizards.
Jub. We cut over to Krusty Lou's studios where we see Roger Myers Jr. step into the office of a very upset Krusty the Clown. Hey, Krusty, you look great. You get your teeth bleached?
Yeah, it's a new kind of polymer treatment. Hey, shut up! You're here because your Itchy and Scratchy cartoons are stinking up my ratings. Look at this breakdown of yesterday's show.
Krusty is showing the line graph of the ratings, and there is an absolute crater at exactly when Itchy and Scratchy took the air. But Roger Myers is trying to, play coy or act like he doesn't really get it. He's like, what happened here? Lightning hit the transmitter?
See, that's what I thought at first, but Hey, shut up!
I love that Myers is able to keep shrieking Krusty or distracting him at least.
Well, to be fair, the plummet happens at 4:20, so maybe all the viewers were taking a smoke break at the time.
I mean, they would not turn off Itchy and Scratchy. If anything, that's an argument against his show.
Okay,
more people would be watching.
I was trying to help Itchy and Scratchy out, but never mind.
Roger Myers immediately comes to the show's defense. But Itchy and Scratchy is critically acclaimed.
Acclaimed? Puh! I ought to replace it right now with the Chinese cartoon where the robots that turn into bling wads.
Krusty decides he's going to give it one more chance, and that's it.
Get out! Don't come back till you fix Itchy and Scratchy.
Roger Myers walks out of the room. He actually slams the door, or Krusty slams the door on him, and it shatters. And we actually see that Sideshow Mel is patiently waiting in the waiting room and is told that he can see Krusty now. Immediately he comes in. Krusty, I've come to solicit donations for the Rock and Roll Museum, and I'll come back later.
I do have one problem with this scene. He says you've got one episode to fix Itchy and Scratchy, but it's a cartoon show, so wouldn't they already have like the next couple of episodes ready to go?
Well, in 1997, Richie, most animation was done live, despite it being a real strain on the writers' and animators' wrists.
But yeah, I thought it was a little weird because I thought they already had that episode fired up and ran.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. I don't know that this is really fair to the production of a real cartoon schedule.
Mm-hmm. I'm also wondering why in this episode Krusty's in on every Itchy and Scratchy meeting when he said they had one episode to fix it, but then they're working on the Krusty Lou Studios lot, so I figured he's probably a shareholder, so he's allowed to be in all those meetings.
That makes sense. As much sense as anything. We see that Marge has taken the kids to the mall. It's because she has to purchase a new bra, and this is the absolute worst. I remember this type of thing from when you were a kid, but when I would have to go shopping with my parents, the best thing in the world would be, well, first of all, the best thing was when the department store had one of the like demo Nintendos available, so you could play video games while you waited. But the second best thing was running around and hiding under the clothes racks and whatnot. But the worst thing on the planet was being told that you have to wait in the credit department or any equivalent lame part of the store where there's nothing interesting to look at.
Some places usually had like a toy section that was very, very small too, where like you knew you had to waste 10 minutes on each toy because you're going to be there for a while.
Yeah,
there was nothing you wanted to look at.
Yeah, you're taking way, way more time looking at Slinky than you ever really would in real life.
Yes.
I do love, though, we instantly see that Marge's original judgment was probably correct, because when Bart asks, can't we just wander around and meet you back here later?
Okay, just be careful.
And almost immediately when Marge leaves, a creepy man comes up and is like, hey, would you kids like to come with me?
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Okay, I guess so. And that's even Lisa.
Yeah.
Bart and Lisa are both tricked by this creeper at the mall.
I mean, he didn't really trick them. He just said, do you want to come with me? And they said yes.
But clearly they're not able to make responsible decisions, which is really funny when you think about the fact that Lisa is going to be babysitting for the majority of the town in just a few short episodes.
And she's going to make a responsible choice on how to possibly help out a failing cartoon show in like one scene.
In like 2 minutes. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. This turns out not to be as bad as one might expect when a strange man takes children at the mall, but he's actually running a focus group. And he's actually wrangled up Ralph, a girl from Bart's class, Nelson, and Milhouse, along with Bart and Lisa. And they are going to get to watch some cartoons. The man explains, we want you to tell us what you think, and be honest, because no one from the show is here spying on you. And we see that there's a big mirror, and the sneezing sound comes from right behind it, and it actually shakes a little bit.
Why is that mirror sneezing?
Look, it's just an old creaky mirror, you know. Sometimes it sounds a little like it's sneezing, or coughing, or even talking softly. The guy kind of gives yeah, we're in the clear, don't worry about it, thumbs up to the obviously one-way mirror. The man tells all of the kids that all they have to do is turn the knob that they've been given to either the green light or the red light based on if they're enjoying what they're watching or not. And they immediately start watching a whole lot of crazy, itchy, and scratchy violence. And we get Ralph, who is disassembled his knob to eat it.
My knob tastes funny.
Please refrain from tasting the knob.
A classic line, Miles. Classic.
I also really like during this cartoon sequence at one point, there is a muscle-bound man in a Speedo, and Nelson reaches over to Milhouse's knob and turns it to the green light, and we see
multiple times.
Like over and over again. And we see back behind the mirror, Roger Myers is saying, they like Itchy, they like Scratchy, and one kid seems to love the Speedo Man. What more do they want?
Well, they should just ask, Miles. That's always a good thing to do.
You know, that's exactly what they do, is they actually just pull the crowd, but unfortunately it doesn't go so great, because the first question is, how many of you kids would like Itchy and Scratchy to deal with real-life problems like the ones you face every day?
Oh, yeah, I would.
That'd be great.
Idea. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and who would like to see them do just the opposite? Getting into far-out situations involving robots and magic powers.
Me,
yeah, cool, man, that sounds great. So, you want a realistic, down-to-earth show that's completely off the wall and swarming with magic robots.
That's right. Yeah. Good.
And also, you should win things by watching. Roger Myers is completely just over it. He doesn't understand what kids want. He thinks that the kids don't know what they want because they're still kids and they're stupid. Only he doesn't just say this to themselves. He's actually screaming this at the kids through the mirror, which he's turned the light on so you can now see clearly. And the best part, though, Ralph actually starts crying and then turning his knob to red because he doesn't like it.
But it's so upsetting the way he's crying because he's actually put his head on the desk. He's
Mommy! But this is the moment we were speaking of earlier. Lisa, the usual role for her, the voice of reason, she walks up to the mirror and explains to her own reflection, there's nothing wrong with Itchy and Scratchy, but after so many years, the characters lose something of their impact.
That's it! That's it, little girl! You've saved Itchy and Scratchy!
And immediately we see the blue-haired lawyer walk out. Please sign these papers indicating that you did not save Itchy and Scratchy.
I don't know if a signed contract by an 8-year-old would be binding, but maybe in Springfield.
I really do love, at this point in the show, you can really see that the parallels between this show and another show that's been on for like almost 8 full seasons now are starting to be a little bit more visible. And this is obviously turning into a meta commentary on its own show, on The Simpsons itself, which is really, really fun. And especially when such a just downright intelligent writer like a David Cohen, I think that this is really in his wheelhouse, just the way that he's able to take so much of the inside show from the show, Itchy and Scratchy, and how they often will use that as a meta commentary in general of their own show, but in this way, they're just really expanding upon that.
Yeah. It's I had a few of those notes at the beginning, and then I was like, there's so much going on joke-wise. I'm just going to put the note at the end, but I'll go ahead and allude it. And again, if you don't recall, we bring this up a lot, but Miles and I don't talk about our notes before we do the podcast. That way we can bring up stuff the other one might not know and get true reactions from each other. But I wrote down a note about how there's so many jokes within jokes in this episode, and meta jokes as well, and that's just from the dialogue, and that's something that other shows do, and some other shows can kind of do well, but I almost feel like that The Simpsons set the bar on doing things like that, and this episode has so much of that.
Well, and just to hammer this point home, in the very next sequence, we see a staff meeting for Itchy and Scratchy with all of the writers, and all of the writers for Itchy and Scratchy are drawn to look like the Simpsons writers' real-life counterpart. So we have very, very clear caricatures of Josh Weinstein, Bill Oakley, David Cohen, George Meyer, and a whole lot of others. And they did talk about, I think it was Josh Weinstein on the commentary, said that Harry Shearer actually did all of the voice impressions of the Simpsons writers, and Josh Weinstein described them as pretty insulting.
Which means they're probably true. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I honestly don't think I knew that before I read my guidebook for this episode. that they were actually based off actual Simpsons staff members. But that's awesome.
Well, like, even in the script, we see it written out for some of their lines. It's Oakley and Weinstein, which at one point they were actually going to be, before they decided just to go full out with this, they had considered just making a character of the name of Bill, or Josh Oakley, I think is what it was going to be, just a combination. But they just decided to make everybody a character instead, which I think turned out to be really, really funny. And just to keep it going, I'll just jump ahead slightly so we can go through this whole thing here. But in just a moment, we go from the writer's room to the animation studio where they're actually drawing Poochie for the first time. And the animator is drawn to look just like David Silverman, even to the point where David Silverman plays the tuba in real life. And there's a tuba drawn in the animation studio in the corner behind him while he's drawing. So, just this episode is so chock full of lots of little inside gags. Probably, admittedly, we're going to miss some if we haven't already, but we're doing our best to cover everything, and it's really neat just to immortalize these guys and to kind of parody yourself, roast yourself a little bit in this very fun episode. Roger Myers starts the meeting. I figured out a way of how to rejuvenate the show. It's so simple, you egghead writers would have never thought of it. What we need is a new character. One that today's kids can relate to.
Are you absolutely sure that's wise, sir? I mean, I don't want to sound pretentious here. Itchy and Scratchy comprise a dramaturgical dyad. Hey, this ain't art, it's business. What do you got in mind? Sexy broad, gangster octopus?
No, the animal chain of command goes mouse, cat, dog. And then to explain himself to the writers, he looks over at the writers and says, D-O-G.
A dog? Isn't that a tad predictable?
In your dreams, we're talking the original dog from hell.
You mean Cerberus?
This is actually a network lady who's chiming in because it's all about ratings, remember? We at the network want a dog with attitude. He's edgy. He's in your face. You've heard the expression, let's get busy? Well, this is a dog who gets busy. Consistently and thoroughly.
So he's proactive, huh? Is this Lindsay Nagel? Is this Lindsay Nagel before Lindsay Nagel? Because I think she's a blonde in the later seasons. But I feel like this character is the early, like how he had early Sea Captain. I feel like this is early Lindsay Nagel.
They didn't mention it, but I guess it's possible. Maybe they'll bring it up in the future when we see her, but they did not talk about that at all. She's just listed as lady and network executive is how she was referred to on the commentary. George Meyer, who's been sitting at the table, and he's got a very specific look. He's the one that's wearing the, like, cool hat, for lack of a better word, and sunglasses. But he speaks up to say, excuse me, but proactive, paradigm, aren't these just buzzwords that dumb people use to sound important? Not that I'm accusing you of anything like that. I'm fired, aren't I?
Oh, yes.
So the decision to add a dog to the show is officially made, and they take it to the animation studio where they start drawing it. And at first, it's just like very simply a dog. So that's not going to work. But they just keep adding more and more stuff, like hip-hop accessories and a flannel shirt. And then the final move where everybody agrees this is what we need is when they draw sunglasses on what we now know as Poochie.
Well, and when they were coming up with a name for Poochie, he's like, give him a cool name, something along the lines of, I don't know, Poochie, only more proactive. And then they leave the room and all the writers are like, Poochie work with everybody? Yep. Which, Miles, I want to ask, they talked about the gangster octopus, Krusty did. One of the writers or the animator is wearing a shirt with an octopus on it, and I'm pretty sure I could see a gun, or I thought I did on the end of one of its tentacles. And I want to know if that's where Krusty got the idea, or if that's another joke within the episode. But like literally through the whole episode, one of them is wearing a white shirt with an octopus on it.
So that is an in-joke, but I don't think it's a reference to that line, because that writer, the person you're referring to, is David Cohen, and that is actually based on a real t-shirt that he wore very frequently that had an octopus on it. I don't think it had a gun on it, though.
Yeah, I was trying to... It looked like part of the tentacle was bent, like it could be holding something, so
It was
I was
just
curious.
described as an octopus shirt that he frequently wore.
Cool. Well, you know how terrible my vision is.
Back at the Simpsons home, the news is breaking that they're adding a new character to the Itchy and Scratchy show. And in the middle of this conversation, we see a character by the name of Roy walk into the kitchen.
Yo, how's it hanging, everybody?
Morning, Roy. Yeah, hi, Roy. So Roy is treated very much like a lot of other characters that were added to classic sitcoms. The most popular, or maybe the most classic example I can think of, is when they added Cousin Oliver to the Brady Bunch. And essentially, everybody was just supposed to be, like, okay with the fact that, like, they're just throwing this in. So this is actually a parody of the fact that a real-life executive that worked for Fox actually suggested to the Simpsons staff that to spice up the show a little bit, since it's been going for so long now, they should introduce a new, cool character that would actually live with the Simpsons. The writers, of course, rejected this idea and thought it was terrible, but could not wait to roast it when they got the opportunity to, and thought this was the perfect chance to fit into the kind of meta structure that this episode is already working in.
The lean into the skid, as you would.
But just the fact that some jackass at Fox is like, oh, you know, The Simpsons just isn't working. We need them to be hip. We need that younger teen audience.
We need them to be wearing flannel.
A lot of flannel.
But I like that the newspaper article that Homer's reading up says, funny dog to make life worthwhile.
Yeah.
So that's kind of leaning into that as well.
And he also learns that they're going to have open auditions for his voice, which immediately the kids start encouraging him to audition because he's got such a funny voice.
I mean, hasn't he ever listened to himself on a tape recorder before, Miles?
And I like that he actually does record himself, and when they play it back, it sounds exactly like the Homer we know and love, but he is mortified. And I think everybody that's ever recorded themselves knows this, and especially if you're a podcaster, it's a barrier you have to learn to break through for the editing process. But yeah, hearing yourself through a recording is awful the first time, and it's hilarious that Homer at the age of 38 has never heard himself recorded.
But he does like a freaking DJ voice when he does the recording too.
Smooth DJ, but it's totally him.
This is Homer Simpson.
And yeah, but he actually has like a good radio voice in that moment is the funny part.
Well, that's because he has a very good voice actor doing it.
Yeah, very accurate. True story. Dan Castellaneta is taking the reins on this one. But I don't sound like that, do I? Oh, I don't like having such a hilarious voice. We see at the Krusty Lou Studios, they're already getting the auditions underway, and Otto is actually starting out.
Whoa! A talking dog! What were you guys smoking when you came up with that?
We were eating rotisserie chicken. But Roger Myers is happy. He sees Otto and he's like, you're perfect. In fact, you're better than perfect. Next to perfection, you're crap. Nope. No, I fucked that up bad. Next to you, perfection is crap. Only the next auditioner is a little bit more experienced than Otto is, because none other than Troy McClure, voiced even for this very small line by the late, great Phil Hartman, comes into the studio.
Ruff, I'm Poochie the Rockin' Dog. Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such cartoons as Christmas Ape and Christmas Ape Goes to Summer Camp.
And poor Otto, because immediately Roger Myers is like, you're even better than this guy. Take a hike, you bum.
Drag.
And finally, it's Homer's turn to give this a try.
Ruff, I'm Poochie the Rockin' Dog.
And immediately Roger Myers is like, wow, that's bad. That's awful. You have no attitude. You're barely outrageous. And I don't know what you're in, but it's not my face. Next.
Oh, no attitude, eh? Not in your face, huh? Well, you can cram it with walnuts, ugly.
That's it. That's the Poochie attitude. Do that again.
Huh? I can't. I don't remember what I did.
Then you don't get the job. Next.
Oh, I don't get the job, do I? Well, boo-hoo! I don't get to be a cartoon dog.
That's it. You got the job.
Oh, now I've got the job, huh? Oh, thank you.
And Homer getting defiant with his job offer because he's still in sarcasm mode is actually what's going to bring us to the end of our first act, which, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize through watching this episode, even watching it multiple times, this first act break comes at the 9-minute and 20-second mark, almost halfway through the entirety of this episode. But we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back with Act 2 of the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show.
Okay, Mr. Most Days Off. Now we're ready for the TeePublic ad.
Head over to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly right now to support our show. Get yourself some Best Darn Diddly merchandise and help grow our podcast. I messed up there. Can I get another take?
Okay, just a second. Out of the way, amateur. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Go to popthreads.com and save 15% with the discount code Simpsons. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to bestdarndiddly.com to get all your podcast needs from the greatest show on earth. Learn from a professional, kid. All right, Krusty. We're ready for your take. Krusty?
When we come back for the start of our second act, we see Homer is actually warming up for his first recording session as Poochie. She shells sheep smells by the sheet store.
I don't remember that one.
And there's another great meta joke almost right off the bat when Homer meets the voice of Itchy and Scratchy, a woman by the name of June Bellamy, which there's a lot happening here because first of all, Homer is like, you can't be the voice of Itchy and Scratchy as a woman. And immediately, June goes into the voice of both Itchy and Scratchy. Now, Homer's amazement with the fact that a woman does this role is obviously a reference to the Simpsons' own Nancy Cartwright, who does many male voices, including two of the guys we've already seen in this episode, which are three, Bart Simpson, Nelson Muntz, and Ralph Wiggum.
Wow, Nancy does boy voices? No way.
Right? Yeah. I know I've talked about it before, but one of my favorite videos you can see on Nancy's own YouTube page or Instagram account or somewhere, I don't know, she posted it, but it's she meets a fan who doesn't realize it's her, and she starts talking to him in Bart Simpson voice for quite a while before it clicks, and he just loses his damn mind and is like, oh my god, I just met Bart Simpson. I totally get it. But in addition to this reference, this kind of in-joke to Nancy Cartwright being the voice of many of the male characters, but there's actually another reference going on because the character June is likely a reference to June Foray, who is known for her work on The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, where I believe she did the voice of Rocky.
That sounds correct to me. It's been so long since I've seen that, but yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I learned that Rocky was voiced by a female voice actor.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, there's so many in-jokes happening right here. It's just it's really funny. And then last but not least, in fact, I think this might be one of my favorite facts from this entire episode. June is actually voiced technically by 3 different voice actors. Because you see, Tress MacNeille does June's talking voice, but the voices of Itchy and Scratchy on the show are actually done by Dan Castellaneta and Henry Shear. So while talking to Homer, when she's just herself, it's Tress MacNeille. And then when she's Itchy and Scratchy, it cuts to either Dan or Harry, depending on which character is. And to me, until I got to the end of the commentary and they pointed that out, my mind was blown because as you listen to this conversation, you would never guess that there's 3 people total providing the voice of these 2 characters playing other characters, which just gets really heady, but it's really fun to think about how the process of this episode getting created worked.
You mean meep meep?
Meep meep. Yeah, exactly. Of course, she got screwed over because she only recorded 1 meep, and then they doubled it on the soundtrack. Cheap bastards. Homer also asks if the cartoon is going to air live, which the response to this absolutely cracks me up for a bunch of reasons. No, Homer, very few cartoons are broadcast live. It's a terrible strain on the animator's wrists. And what really makes me laugh about this is in 1997, the idea of live animation is a complete ridiculous notion. Like, it's an impossibility in 1997, so that makes the joke really funny for its time. What makes it even funnier now is now, of course, we know that The Simpsons actually did do a very short sequence of live animation at the tail end of one of their own episodes. We talked about it in pretty great detail with our review of Cape Fear, where Simpsons writer Carolyn Omine joined us, and we talked about the process of what all went into the live animation sequence. But in a funny way, they foreshadowed their own breakthrough in television history.
And we'll see what happens with that 5 years from now. Or I guess, how long did it take from then to now? 22 years, you said? Oh, man.
It's been a while. Next up, we get a new setting from Springfield for this episode. We cut to the android's dungeon, where we get some more fun and games at the Simpsons fans' expense this time, because this is essentially this entire sequence, everything with Comic Book Guy, all the nerds asking questions, every bit of this is just making fun of over-the-top Simpsons fans from the internet. Most of these questions and examples are based on real-life interactions that people on the internet had said to the various Simpsons writers or had posted on message boards about The Simpsons, including things like, I hope somebody gets fired for this, over the idea of like the same note being heard twice on a xylophone. It wasn't exactly that, but just that extreme degree of nerdism. And I love some of the lines where they even talk about how, like, they're like, the creators of the show owe us that much. And I think Bart or Lisa, somebody points out, like, what are you talking about? They give you, like, hours of free entertainment. If anything, you owe them.
Worst episode ever.
It's actually database. On the Itchy and Scratchy CD-ROM, is there a way to get out of the dungeon without using the wizard key?
What the hell are you talking about?
You're a lifesaver, Homer. I can't deal with these hardcore fans. We actually get another fun sequence where Comic Book Guy makes himself known. He comes from the back of the line and immediately starts getting autographs. Mr. Simpson will now be autographing 8x10 glossies of Poochie. 1 per customer. Please form a line. There will be no cutting. I'm talking to you, Mr. Cutter. Pardon me. Look out. Pardon me. Excuse me. Hot soup. Hi. Kindly make 1 out to me, and 3 out to my friend of the same name. And all of this buzz and hoopla, even Apu is getting in on it. He put a Poochie sign that was advertising Brillo pads for like 99 cents or something like that.
98 cents, Miles.
Oh, excuse me.
It's
the
a sale.
savings. The savings.
Yeah.
We actually get to the big moment, though, of when Poochie is going to make his television debut, and none other than Krusty the Clown is there to make the announcement.
Well, and this is after everyone has crowded into the Simpsons home. They've invited pretty much the whole town over to watch.
Even Jasper is like talking to Bart. Is this seat taken, little girl?
I'm not a girl. Are you blind?
Yes.
I also love that it is in the script, so I could verify that I actually heard it. But in the background, when they're painting through the living room, you hear Barney at one point say, Poochie was based on me. Okay, Barn. Once in a while, we are privileged to experience a television event so extraordinary, it becomes part of our shared heritage. Man walks on the moon. Man walks on the moon again. Then, for a long time, nothing happened. Until tonight.
And we see Krusty gives the signal to start the show, and all of the kids go absolutely gaga. We see the title sequence, the Beagle has landed. Itchy and Scratchy are driving, and they pass a sign for a fireworks factory 2 miles out, then 1 mile, then half a mile when they are distracted by passing a surfer dog. Look, Scratchy, it's our new friend Poochie.
What's that name again? I forgot.
The name's Poochie D, and I rock the telly. I'm half Joe Camel and third Fonzarelli. I'm the kung fu hippie from Gangsta City. I'm a rapping surfer for you and a fool I pity.
Oh, Poochie is one outrageous dude.
He's totally in my face. And throughout this rap, we're getting all these crazy images. Poochie is dunking a basketball. He's got the surfboard. He skates. He is everything that the 90s was and is why he's so near and dear to my heart in a really fun way. But what's actually really funny about this character is this was obviously trying to be extreme, over the top, and just making fun of like what they were going for in the 90s, like what was cool in the 90s at this time. And the really ironic part is that kids of a certain age ended up loving Poochie in a non-ironic way, including many of the Simpsons writers' own children, which made them very, very sad when Poochie is basically killed off, for lack of a better word, at the end of this episode, because there is a group of kids that were watching at this time where it actually did hit the mark. Like they were trying to be over the top with it, but it 100% worked.
Really?
Yes.
I did not have that feeling at all watching this.
Well, we were older though. We were, at the time that this came out, you were 13 years old, so you would have had, you're getting into like teenager mode. But I'm talking about like, think about the kids that would have been the age we were when we first started watching The Simpsons, and how you might get attached to certain characters.
I guess he's got nunchucks, so that would be pretty cool to an 8-year-old.
And that means, based on what I know about the Ninja Turtles, that they probably can't show Poochie's nunchucks in the United Kingdom. Chris Manley, let us know. Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles is what it is over there, because you can't say ninja. It's crazy.
Well, I don't.
Backwards country.
Oh,
Brexit. Whatever. I don't know.
What I don't understand is, why didn't they do a focus group with this like small 20 seconds of Poochie with kids? Like within the cartoon universe, to see if it would work or not.
Just giving every kid a dial and let them turn it red or green.
Yeah. That would have worked out great.
Oh, I forgot to mention too, at one point Poochie does a guitar solo, and it just gets crazier and crazier. And we see back at the Simpsons home the reaction to the show, and it's not good. Mo is just upset because he has no idea what's going on. Midge, can you help me out here?
Quiet, you're missing the jokes.
And Milhouse is actually crying because he just wants to know when they're going to get to the fireworks factory.
A valid complaint. A very valid complaint.
And the real issue is that Poochie never does a damn thing. Like, nothing at all. Like, at one point he jumps into the car, tries to give a high five to Scratchy.
Psych!
Catch you on the flip side, dude, meisters.
Not.
Hey kids, always recycle to the extreme. Bust it. And then he just drives right past the fireworks factory.
Terrible, Miles. Terrible.
And immediately that's the reaction. I mean, Nelson is very blunt about it. That stunk. But pretty much everybody's like trying to file out. But you have this really funny moment with Ned where he's trying to do the neighborly thing and basically trying to do the Flanders thing.
Homer, I can honestly say that was the best episode of Impy and Chimpy I've ever seen.
And Carl is on his way out too. Yeah, Homer, you should be very proud. You've got a beautiful home here.
Oh.
Real quick on the Impy and Chimpy joke, there is actually a first draft of this where it was Marge and she was going to say the Starchy and Kitty show, but they thought that Ned saying Impy and Chippy worked better, and I think it was a really good... Honestly, I like that moment with Ned because it's true to his character.
Well, and like it's out of his character to even be watching something, but it's in his character to be super
to support
supportive.
His friends. Yeah.
But and also Marge has had interactions with Itchy and Scratchy before, so it makes...
Well, even at like the opening line of the episode was her warning her kids that they were missing Itchy and Scratchy. So.
Yeah, it's for continuity purposes and to be one of those nerds that talk about whatever episode the nerd talked about. Yeah, we like this better.
But Poor Homer, even his family is kind of bailing because after everybody else leaves, Nelson even punches Bart on the way out, and Homer's like, "So, it was pretty okay, huh?"
Mom, can we go to bed without dinner?
Yes, we can. And they all run off immediately.
And this is always the thing that makes you feel so like I always want to put this episode up on my list of Simpsons episodes, but the fact that there's no Poochie payoff, I know that's the point of the episode, but it always hurts it in my mind.
Stings, man.
You always want Homer to succeed, and it's one of those moments where like it just goes so backwards for him, and like you really feel for him, like you wanted him to have his moment, and he doesn't get it.
And I think that this next sequence is actually like the real like punch to the gut, or like the rotten cherry on top of this shit situation. Because after everyone else has left him, Homer has one of his classic conversations with his own brain. Well, at least I liked it, didn't I?
Oh, you don't want to know what I really think. Now look sad and say dough.
Dough. It's dark, but it's funny. But it really is. It's that emotional weight, the heart, if you will, that we talk so much about on the show. And that actually does bring us to the end of our second act. But with such little time left remaining in the episode, we're just going to keep rolling right through. We cut to breakfast the next morning where Homer is still wallowing in self-pity, but Lisa's doing her very best to try to console him by saying that Poochie was just a soulless byproduct of committee thinking. You can't be cool just by spouting off a bunch of worn-out buzzwords.
Don't have a cow, Lise.
Bart's right. Let's none of us have a cow.
They're just hitting the nail on the head with those in this one.
And Marge even adds that all that really matters is that the fans of the show liked it.
Oh, don't say
and we cut to the androids dungeon where we get another direct reference to the angry Simpsons nerds on the internet in the late 90s, because the phrase "worst episode ever" is a direct quote from the message boards talking about previous Simpsons episodes in the past. In this case, we see Comic Book Guy. Last night's Itchy and Scratchy was without a doubt the worst episode ever. Rest assured that I was on the internet within minutes, registering my disgust throughout the world.
Hey, I know it wasn't great, but what right do you have to complain?
As a loyal viewer, I feel they owe me.
What? They're giving you thousands of hours of entertainment for free. What could they possibly owe you? If anything, you owe them.
And Comic Book Guy just stares back blankly for a moment. Worst episode ever.
And that's where his line is born.
I do think it's just hilarious that they quoted their own, like, critiquers. That's really funny.
And it's such an iconic line now that it is the character.
Yeah, if you say Comic Book Guy, most people are going to quote at you worst whatever ever. We've used it many times on this show for promotion.
Especially for Simpsons writers / showrunners.
Yeah, exactly. Kent Brockman does a report. It's My 2 Cents, one of his common segments that we see.
Why doesn't he call it My 2 Kents?
My 2 Kents would be a better name. That's great. Far be it from me to gloat at another's downfall, but I have a feeling that no children are going to be crying when this puppy is put to sleep.
And that's after he had gone on a rant about, like, how he has been against Itchy and Scratchy from the get-go, but it's been hard because of how hilarious they are.
Yeah. It's just messed up that they're talking about killing a dog.
Unbiased reporting by Kent Brockman. Miles, even you can't be upset when this puppy's put to sleep.
This was one that didn't upset me. It made me laugh. I don't know. But dog violence is wrong, damn it. But we actually cut away and see that Krusty himself was watching this news report.
What the hell happened?
I'd attribute the product failure to fundamental shifts in our key demographic, coupled with overall crumminess of Poochie.
Oh! That line always cracks me up.
The crumminess of Poochie?
Well, just that she tries to like sell it with other random shit at first, and then overlined with the overall crumminess of Poochie.
Poochie. Yeah, that's really, if we're cutting out the bullshit, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Homer actually has a list of his own suggestions to help fix Poochie.
1. Poochie needs to be louder, angrier, and have access to a time machine. 2. Whenever Poochie's not on screen, all the other characters should be asking, "Where's Poochie?" 3.
Great. Yeah, just leave your suggestions right there on the floor on your way out.
And this part, this little tiny line that said when Homer walks out the door, like, just made it hurt so much worse. And I'm pretty sure it came from the writers that were in the room with him. But you hear him say, like, "Thanks, Homer. Yeah." And it's just like this little tiny line. And I don't know why. I was like, oh, they're acknowledging that he's trying. But like that just almost tears at your heartstring even more.
Anytime you see Homer like really being passionate about something and it just doesn't work for him, it's hard to watch for sure. That's like where a lot of the tension from the show, I think, is found.
Mm-hmm.
And Homer's clearly upset. He can tell, something's up. And we actually see him sneak back around the corner into a storage room that has a adjoining door so he can eavesdrop. And he hears that, well, we actually just see his expression, his shocked expression, but we find out basically that they're planning on killing off Poochie. And
did you hear, or did you see what was in the room with him?
No, what was in the room?
He's in this little mail room, and there's boxes of Poochie hate mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 3 boxes full, and one of them's like foreign.
Big bags, yeah.
One of them's foreign hate mail.
Lots of hate mail. So Poochie's not going over well. Kind of fun little story from the commentary on this eavesdropping sequence. Apparently, this is based off of a longtime rumor in Hollywood, essentially. At the time that Johnny Carson was handing over the reins of The Tonight Show, there is a big battle, essentially, between Jay Leno and David Letterman to see who is going to get this job. And there's a long-time rumor that at one time Jay Leno actually eavesdropped on a board meeting, and it was actually disclosed to him at that time that he would be the one getting the spot. And Homer running into the mailroom like this is supposed to parody that rumor.
Wait, but didn't Letterman get the spot?
No, Jay Leno got the Tonight Show, and Letterman actually ended up going over to Late Night on CBS.
Oh, I thought you said CBS. That's why I was confused.
No. Johnny Carson was on NBC, and the
Gotcha.
television, Late Night Television Wars was between Jay Leno and David Letterman to get Johnny Carson's job. It ended up working out well for both of them, I think.
Yeah.
They both got dream jobs.
That's a very obscure reference, though.
It is, but it's kind of funny that, they just went full meta on this one, like all sorts of in-jokes and references. Immediately when he gets home, Homer reveals what he is considering to be bad news, and it's kind of funny when you can see Bart and Lisa are trying to fake sadness, even though their immediate reaction was like, "Really? How terrible."
Yes, terrible.
It's not your fault, Homer. It's those lousy writers. They make me madder than yak in heat.
And that's another one where, like, it's a joke within a joke right there, just from the writing point.
100%, just a bad joke that,
I mean, the writers were writing it, so they could have made her say anything.
Homer agrees he's not going to let them treat Poochie like dirt anymore just because he's the new guy.
Right on, Mr. S.
Put a sock in it, Roy. We see at the recording studio the next day, they are basically recording Poochie's last episode. And Homer refuses to read the script. He says, when he's asked actually if he's ready to record Poochie's death scene in his standard Homer voice, he just sits down and says, No,
I am not.
Myers immediately threatens, like, dude, we can do this show without you, so either do the lines or get out. But June steps up for Homer's defense and says, you might be able to do it without him, but you can't do it without me. And Roger Myers is forced to let Homer take a crack at the lines that he himself wrote. June sets him up. Hi, Poochie. You look like you've got something to say. Do you?
Yes, I certainly do.
I don't know why I love the way Homer says that line every time.
Hello there, Itchy. I know there's a lot of people who don't like me and wish I would go away. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I know I can come off a little proactive, and for that I'm sorry. But if everyone could find a place in their hearts for the little dog that nobody wanted, I know we can make them laugh and cry until we grow old together.
And cut. And miraculously, the writers, the producers, even Roger Myers Jr. himself, they all looked moved, and they applaud Homer's heartfelt words. We have a little bit of a time lapse, and we cut to the airing of the latest Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie episode. And Homer is immediately trying to do some damage control from the response he got last time.
Now, kids, I know you love the old Poochie, but the new one is going to be better than 10 Super Bowls. I don't want to oversell it. Judge for yourselves.
Homer does the exact opposite of what he claims to be wanting to do. Oversells the shit out of it. We see that Itchy and Scratchy are at an ice sculpture contest, and Itchy begins by cutting into Scratchy, who's in a giant block of ice, but he doesn't stop at the ice. He just starts sawing him, and suddenly Poochie just wanders by.
Hi, Poochie. You look like you have something to say. Do you?
Yes, I certainly do. And then it immediately freezes the episode. The animation cuts completely frozen, and Roger Myers' voice comes on. I have to go now. My planet needs me. And we get this real crappy, like you can even see the animation cell slipping out of frame, which actually, fun fact, you can see the title of the animation cell is 4F12, which is actually the production code for this episode. But we get a script that pops up saying that Poochie died on the way back to his home planet.
Wow, Poochie came from another planet?
I guess. Homer's in shock to be double-crossed, but Krusty's not done yet. He wants to put some more nails in the coffin.
Poochie's dead!
Yay!
Well, kids, we all know that sometimes when cartoon characters die, they're back again the very next week. That's why I'm presenting this sworn affidavit that Poochie will never, ever, ever return.
And we even see blue-haired lawyer come out on stage. This document conforms to all applicable laws and statutes, which amazingly gets kids cheering. Yeah, kids are way into statutes.
And law.
Bart and Lisa are cheering too, but they are trying to hide it from their dad, not doing such a good job at it. Tough break, Dad. I guess people just weren't ready for Poochie. Maybe in a few years.
Good news, everybody! I'm moving into my own apartment with 2 sexy ladies.
Oh, then I guess this is goodbye, Roy. Maybe we'll see you in a few years.
Well, I guess I learned my lesson. The thing is, I lost creative control of the project, and I forgot to ask for any money. Well, live and learn.
I have that problem all the time. This would be a great time to bring up our Patreon account. Patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Support the show.
And take all our creative control away.
Yeah, there you go. Our final scene of the episode is Bart and Lisa, where we've seen them so many times before, sitting in front of the television, watching now classic Itchy and Scratchy, which has Itchy and Scratchy doing a William Tell act with the apple and the shooting and whatnots. Scratchy is understandably nervous, but relieved that the arrow strikes the exact middle of the apple. Unfortunately, though, it also hits the tank of carbolic acid that is standing right beside, and the acid burns off all his skin, leaving just a skeleton cat to end the episode.
I remember I asked my pre-AP chemistry teacher in high school if carbolic acid would act that fast. I don't remember what he said, but he was into like semi-nerdy stuff, so I brought this to his attention after I saw it around that time.
That's really funny and would have been way more interesting if you remembered his answer.
I feel like he said it would have been... I think he said it would have been better. What's the other... he said it should have been sulfuric acid to act that quick, if I remember correctly, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Fair. Bart points out it's back to the basics. Classic Itchy and Scratchy.
We should thank our lucky stars that they're still putting on a program of this caliber after so many years.
Little last message to the fans, I guess. And the great part, though, is after they stare blankly at the TV for a little bit, Bart says, "What else is on?" And they actually change the channel, and we cut to static, which is probably a lost joke, honestly. I don't think any HD TVs I know of actually static. But old TVs, tube TVs, would be on static if there wasn't anything directly in the signal. And that's what we get our credits pop up over a screen of static. And this is by far the most meta episode of The Simpsons we've seen to date. That brings us to the end of the third act and the end of Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie. Richie, Is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to say before we call it a day?
The one thing I want to bring up from my guidebook, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, is that towards the beginning of the episodes, when Roger Meyer Jr. is walking into Krusty's office, he opens Krusty's door, and there's a sign outside of Krusty's door that says, "Cleaning crew, the liquor is not for you." I thought that was pretty funny. But on top of that, I have 2 points I want to make. First of all, I always felt like it was weird, the first time, especially watching the episode, that they did a Meet the Voice of Poochie meet and greet at the Android's Dungeon before Poochie had ever aired with Homer and June. But I feel like you absolutely have to have that scene because that sets up at the end June standing up for Homer, and you get to see how much she likes Homer in the first scene because he's keeping back all the fanboys and helping her out with that. And I think it really makes her standing up for him like that much more impactful at the end. So like I really, really like how they brought it back. So it gave that first scene a lot more purpose, basically. So I enjoyed that from a structural standpoint. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up, and it's about when Homer's auditioning for the voice of Poochie. He's standing under a spotlight in a dark room, and the spotlight looks yellow. If you've seen any kind of stage lighting, it looks like a really old stage light. And the Simpsons are all yellow.
Yeah.
And the animation lines, the dark black line that outlines Homer, like it was kind of phasing at certain parts in that. And, you know, we have HD televisions now, so you can see this stuff. And I just wanted to know if the animators just like hated that moment because the yellow on yellow part and trying to give it depth. And I assume that's why you fade certain parts in and out. But I just bet that was a pain in the ass to animate.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. They did not talk about it at all on the commentary, but I also noticed the yellow on yellow and just how it just, for lack of a better word, it just looked a little weird. Like, it just didn't quite look right. Like, but it still worked, and I got what they were going for.
Right.
I brought up a little bit at the beginning that David Cohen had said that this was supposed to be, a commentary, essentially, about The Simpsons itself. But when they were pitching this show, it was actually, in their minds, a commentary about a beloved series that was heading towards the end of its run. Because The Simpsons at this point thought, surely, Season 8, the most ever that we could possibly get is like 10. We've got to be on our way out at this point. And they thought that this was going to be a good way to essentially prove that the show could be as good as it ever was. And you could say that they arguably succeeded, because not only does this show often get brought up as a fan favorite, it ranks #1 on many people's lists of all-time best Simpsons episode. But also, well, maybe I should leave this for the people that haven't seen the show, but I guess in just 2 short seasons of this podcast, or 3 short seasons of this podcast, we'll find out if the Simpsons ever make it past season 10.
Man, how great would it have been if this was the last Simpsons episode and the last thing you saw was Bart and Lisa going, "What else is on?" And then it goes to static. Like, would that not be perfect?
That's pretty good. I still stand by the fact that I want the last episode of The Simpsons ever to end with The Simpsons getting ready to go to Bart's Christmas pageant, to just completely fucking loop that flexible time cycle that they constantly talk about. I want to end on one last thing that I think is just really, really sweet in a lot of ways. I mentioned that Alex Rocco was on this commentary. Alex Rocco, who again played Roger Myers Jr., this was his last appearance playing that character on the show. He credited The Simpsons for launching the second half of his career as a voice actor, as I mentioned before. And something that I thought was really sweet. First of all, I'll say that he did, in fact, pass away on July 18th, 2015 at the age of 79. But on the commentary, he told a story about a time that he was walking down the street and there was a little girl with her mom. And the little girl saw him walking down the street and recognized him, started telling her mom excitedly, Mom, that's the voice of Roger Myers Jr. on The Simpsons. And he said that
Wow.
feeling was one of the most special memories he's ever had. And it honestly felt like winning an award, the way it made him feel. And that just moved me so much, like how much of an honor it was for him to be a part of the show, and how much The Simpsons, I mean, that's such a memorable character in the few instances we've seen Roger Myers Jr. up to this point. He always makes a great impact. He had a wonderful voice actor, and I just love anytime I hear these stories where, I mean, he described the voice actors as taking him in like family. And that to me is what I think makes, or why this show is so special in so many ways.
That's a really, really, that is a very touching story. And I honestly did not realize that this is the last time. I mean, oh my gosh. I would assume there would be multiple occasions of him being on the show still. Like, wow.
I don't know that the character never comes back under a new voice, but I also don't know that it does. So it'll be something that we'll have to keep an eye on as we move through the podcast. But that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Once again, I just want to say thank you so much to each and every person that hits that download button. We really appreciate you coming along this journey with us, and it's just such an honor for you to join us each and every week on this show.
We love each and every one of our listeners, but after we're done all loving together, make sure you follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off, follow me at TheWiz_Kid23, and most importantly, follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. It works all over social media.
Make sure you come back again with us next week. We are covering the episode Homer's Phobia, one of arguably the best episodes of the series as well by many people's lists. And we are going to have a great guest joining us for that episode. You can look forward to that just next week.
Catch you on the flip side, Dude Meisters.
And of course, until next time, be cromulent to each other. To the extreme!